Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's On at DisneyPlus.com. I'm here with Russell Griffin, who has recently worked on How I Met Your Father, which is available right now on Hulu in the United States and on Disney Plus around the world. So thank you so much, Russell, for speaking to me today. Could you give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and what shows you have worked on?
Absolutely. Nice to join you, Roger. I appreciate you having me. Yeah, I worked on most recently How I Met Your Father as the primary editor. And before that, I've done everything from kids shows like Nicky, Ricky, Dicky, and Dawn to the reboot of Mad About You to Family Reunion. Mostly I specialize in multicam sitcoms, which is what you think of in terms of the traditional sitcom with the audience lit in front of you viewing, and it goes all the way back to I Love Lucy.
That's cool. And what does your job as an editor involve?
Sure. So, as the editor, I'm the primary person who takes all of the footage that we get from the stage and assembles it in the form that you see in the final version. So, when we break it down in terms of what the script is, we go on set. The director and the actors, everybody creates the footage. They bring it back to me. I look and see what angle we want to use, which takes we want to use, which performances we like. I assemble it all together, put the music, do the transitions, and then start working with the director, the producers, and the studio and the network. So from beginning to end, I'm the one who assembles it all together.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty incredible how it all comes together. So how long does it actually take you to kind of make an episode?
Um, from start to finish, maybe about 8 days total, but that's, starting from the beginning, and sometimes those days are spread out over, a longer period because you're working on multiple episodes, and then you have to work with the director, then the writers and the producers, and then, eventually the studio and the network.
That's cool. And how did you have to did you go back and like rewatch some of How I Met Your Mother to kind of get an idea of how it looked to kind of compare it to, or did you want to do something completely fresh and different?
Well, this was something that, yeah, you definitely want to be familiar with what the universe is in terms of the How I Met Your Mother universe, and then How I Met Your Father stands on its own, but it's part of that same universe. And I wasn't on season one. A friend of mine named Sue Fetterman was the editor for season one, and I came on season two. So I definitely wanted to fit within what they've already constructed, but everything evolves, and even from season one to season two, you'll see an evolution of kind of how the show shapes and how it does its own pace and its own rhythm and its own storytelling.
And how kind of is it different kind of making like How I Met Your Father to, for example, like Raven's Home, like in terms of tone? Does it make a difference of what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's all still about performances and pacing and everything. But yes, you're right. Like Raven's Home is a little bit more broad in terms of the comedic moments. You have a little bit more of a kid approach to it, whereas on How I Met Your Father, you're dealing with sort of a little bit more higher end sophistication in terms of comedic moments. You're not dealing necessarily with pratfalls or visual gags. You're dealing with character moments and those kind of things that drive the story forward. So it's something that you want to do in the editing, is make sure that that paces and keeps up with your audience.
That's cool. And how does it kind of compare? I'm making like a streaming show to like a linear network, obviously like with ads. How does that affect your role?
It's very little different, with the exception of the time. If you're dealing with a linear network, you have to hit a certain amount of time so it fits within their time slot, and you have their commercial breaks. Whereas on a streaming network, you're able to do what you want. You really can have the story fit within the time frame of that particular story. So if it goes a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, it doesn't really matter. They can always still stream it at that length. You want to hit a certain time just because that's the way it feels. But we've worked on shows that are generally longer, and then some shows that are generally shorter. Whereas the linear network, they're all the same time roughly.
That's cool. And what was like the biggest challenge to working on How I Met Your Father?
The biggest challenge on How I Met Your Father was choosing the best takes, because they're all fantastic. I mean, these actors are so on it, with Hillary and Chris, and everybody is just really, really professional and good. You look at Surge's takes and you're like, I can't figure out which one's better because they're all fantastic. Francia is doing some amazing stuff. Tom as well. I mean, it's really just an embarrassment of riches. So that's the toughest part, is like, okay, where do you start? In some shows you go, okay, those takes are all bad, but these are all good. And so how do you figure out the best from the great?
Yes. And obviously, you've been working with Disney on How I Met Your Father, and you've worked with them on Raven's Home. Would there be any other dream projects you'd like to work with them on?
You know, I would love to continue, you know, the How I Met Your Father universe, because it's so well done and such a beloved property that people really enjoy it. So I'd love to continue on that in terms of a dream project. And then, you know, they do such good work throughout. I'm sure there'll be something else that they have that I would love to join.
That's cool. And have you got any tips to anyone that wants to become an editor out there?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I did the traditional film school route. So I did my undergraduate degree and then went and got a master's degree in filmmaking. That's something that I recommend to anybody. But also, you know, if you really want to get into editing, just get into any kind of show. You know, you definitely need to live in Los Angeles or New York. You have to live in a production entity where you can get on some of these shows and just start learning once you're in it. You don't even have to get into the editorial department, get in the post-production department, be a PA, do something and start editing on your own. You can do the same tools that we use here in the office. You can download, you know, Avid Media Composer. One is a free version that people can use, and it's the same software that we use. So just get out there, practice, learn, and once you're into the business in some way, you'll make your way into the editing chair.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, I only do tiny little bits of editing, and I
Yeah.
know how frustrating it can be just doing, and how long sometimes it takes us to do like a couple of minutes, let alone doing a whole series. I definitely kind of feel like, wow, just like, with noticing the little differences and figured like of how long it takes. But again, just thank you so much for taking your time out to speak to us today about How I Met Your Father, which obviously is available right now on Hulu in the US and also on Disney Plus around the world. But I just want to say thank you again, and thanks for a great show because I really enjoyed this one.
My pleasure, Roger. It was wonderful chatting with you, and I hope everybody enjoys the work because we have some amazing episodes coming up.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.